Nights into Dreams is a 1996 action game developed by Sonic Team and published by Sega for the Sega Saturn. The story follows the teenagers Elliot Edwards and Clarice Sinclair, who enter Nightopia, a dream world where all dreams take place. With the help of knights, an exiled Nightmarean, they begin a journey to stop the evil ruler Wise Man from destroying Nightopia and consequently the real world. Players controls knights flying through Elliot and Clarice's dreams to gather enough energy to defeat Wise Man and save Nightopia. The game is presented in 3D and imposes time limits on every level in which the player must accumulate points to proceed. Development began after the release of Sonic and Knuckles in 1994, although the concept originated in 1992 during the development of Sonic the Hedgehog 2. Development was led by Sonic Team veterans Yuji Naka, Naoto Oshima, and Takashi Iizuka. Naka began the project with the idea of flight, and Oshima designed Knights as an androgynous character that resembles an angel that could fly like a bird. The team conducted research on dreaming and REM sleep, and was influenced by the works and theories of psychoanalysts Carl Jung and Sigmund Freud. An analog controller, the Saturn 3D controller, was designed alongside the game and included with some retail copies. Nights into Dreams received acclaim for its graphics, gameplay, soundtrack, and atmosphere. It has been cited as one of the greatest video games ever made. A shorter, Christmas-themed version, Christmas Nights, was released in December of 1996. Nights into Dreams was ported to the PlayStation 2 in 2008 in Japan, and a high-definition version was released worldwide for Windows, PlayStation 3, and Xbox 360 in 2012. A sequel, Nights: The Journey of Dreams, was released for the Wii in 2007. Gameplay. Nights into Dreams is split into 7 levels referred to as Dreams. The levels are distributed between the 2 teenage characters. 3 are unique to Clarice, 3 to Elliot, and each play through an identical final 7th level, Twin Seeds. Initially, only Clarice, Spring Valley, and Elliot's Splash Garden levels are available, and successful completion of one of these unlocks the next level in that character's path. Previously completed stages may be revisited to improve the player's high scores. A grade between A and F is given to the player upon completion, but a C grade or better in all the selected characters' levels must be achieved to unlock the relevant Twin Seed stage for that character. Points are accumulated depending on how fast the player completes a level, and extra points are awarded when the player flies through rings. Each level is split up into 4 mares, set in Nightopia, and a boss fight which takes place in Nightmare. In each level, players initially control Clarice or Elliot, who immediately have their ideas, spherical objects that contain emotions, of hope, wisdom, intelligence, and purity stolen from them by Wise Man's minions, leaving behind only their idea of courage. The goal of each mare is to recover one of the stolen ideae by collecting 20 blue chips and delivering them to the cage holding the ideas, which overloads and releases the orb it holds. If the player walks around the landscape for too long, they are pursued by a sentient alarm clock, which awakens the character and ends the level if it comes into contact with the player. The majority of the gameplay centers on flying sequences, which are triggered by walking into Idea Palace near the start of each level, so that the character merges with the imprisoned knights. Once the flying sequence is initiated, the time limit begins. In the flying sections, the player controls knights flight along a predetermined route through each mare, assembled that of a 2D platformer. The player has only a limited period of time available before Knights falls to the ground and transforms back into Clarice or Elliot, and each collision with an enemy subtracts 5 seconds from the time remaining. The player's time is replenished each time they return an idea to the Idea Palace. While flying, Knights can use a drill dash to travel faster, as well as defeat certain reverie enemies scattered throughout the level. Grabbing onto certain enemies causes Knights to spin around, which launches both Knights and the enemy in the direction the boost was initiated. Various acrobatic maneuvers can be performed, including the Paraloop, whereby flying around in a complete circle and connecting the trail of stars left in Knight's wake causes any items within the loop to be attracted towards Knights. The game features a combo system known as linking, whereby actions such as collecting items and flying through rings are worth more points when performed in quick succession. Power-ups may be gained by flying through several predetermined rings, indicated by a bonus barrel. The power-ups include a speed boost, point multiplier, and an air pocket. The player received a grade based on their score at the end of each mare, and an overall grade for the level after clearing all 4 mares. Knights is then transported to Nightmare for a boss fight against Wise Man's level 2 Nightmarans. Each boss fight has a time limit, and the game ends if the player runs out of time during the battle. Upon winning the boss fight, the player is awarded a score multiplier based on how quickly the boss was defeated, which is then applied to the score earned in the Nightopia section to produce the player's final score for that dream. The game also features a multiplayer mode which allows 2 players to battle each other by using a split screen. One player controls Knights, whereas the other controls Rila. The winner is determined by the first player to defeat the other, which is accomplished by hitting or paralooping the other player 3 times. The game features an artificial life system known as A-Life, which involves entities called Nightopians and keeps track of their moods. It is possible to have them mate with other Nightopians, which creates hybrids known as Supereans. The more the game is played, the more inhabitants appear, and environmental features and aesthetics change. The A-Life system features an evolving music engine, allowing tempo, pitch, and melody to alter depending on the state of Nightopians within the level. The feature runs from the Sega Saturn's internal clock, which alters features in the A-Life system depending on the time. Plot of the game. Every night all human dreams are played out in Nightopia and Nightmare, the 2 parts of the dream world. In Nightopia, distinct aspects of dreamers' personalities are represented by luminous colored spheres known as Ideae. The evil ruler of Nightmare, Wise Man the Wicked, is stealing this dream energy from sleeping visitors in order to gather power and take control of Nightopia and eventually the real world. To achieve this, he creates 5 beings called Nightmaran, jester-like, flight-capable beings, which include Jackal, Claws, Gulpo, Gillwing, and Puffy, as well as many minor Marin. He also creates 2 level 1 Nightmaran, Knights and Relay. However, Knights rebels against Wise Man's plans and is punished by being imprisoned inside an Ideae palace, a container for dreamers' Ideae. One day, Elliot Edwards and Clara Sinclair, 2 teenagers from the city of Twin Seeds, go through failures. Elliot, a basketball player, is challenged by a group of older students and suffers a humiliating defeat on the court. Clarice, a singer, is overcome by stage fright when auditioning for judges, which causes her to lose all hopes of getting the role. When they go to sleep that night, both Elliot and Clarice suffer nightmares that replay the events. They escape into Nightopia and find that they both possess the rare red Ideae of courage, the only type that Wise Man cannot steal. Elliot and Clarice release Knights, who tells them about dreams and Wise Man and his plans. The 3 begin a journey to stop Wise Man and restore peace to Nightopia. When they defeat Wise Man and Relay, peace is returned to Nightopia, and the world of Nightmare is suppressed. The next day in Twin Seeds, a centenary ceremony begins. Elliot walks through the parade and has a vision of knights looking at him through a billboard. Realizing that Clarice is performing in a hall, Elliot runs through the crowd and sees Clarice on stage in front of a large audience singing well. The 2 look at each other and transition to Nightopia. Development. Knights was developed by Sonic Team, the Sega development division that created Sonic the Hedgehog games for Genesis. The Knights concept originated during the development of Sonic the Hedgehog 2 in 1992, but development did not begin until after the release of Sonic and Knuckles in late 1994. Programming began in April of 1995, and total development spanned 6 months. Yuji Naka was lead programmer and producer, while Naoto Oshima and Takashi Iizuka were director and lead designer respectively. Naka and Oshima felt they had spent enough time with the Sonic franchise and were eager to work on new concepts. According to Naka, the initial development team consisted of 7 people and grew to 20 as programmers arrived. Sonic creator and project director Oshima created the character of Knights based on his inspirations from traveling Europe and Western Asia. The character design incorporated Japanese, European, and American stylistics in order to give Knights as universal an appeal as possible. Oshima later decided that the character would resemble an angel and fly like a bird. In the context of the game, Knights is a part of every human subconsciousness, and was so purposely designed to be neither male nor female. Knight's personality is intended to be a mirror of the child's personality. Naka originally intended to make Knights into Dreams a slow-paced game, but as development progressed, the gameplay pace gradually increased in similar vein to Sonic games. The initial concept envisioned the flying character in a rendered 2D sprite art, with side-scrolling features similar to Sonic the Hedgehog. The team were hesitant to switch from 2D to 3D, as Naka was skeptical that appealing characters could be created with polygons in contrast to traditional pixel sprites, which the designers found more expressive. According to Iizuka, the design and story took 2 years to finalize. The difficulty was designed with the intent that young and inexperienced players would be able to complete the game, while more experienced players would be compelled by the replay value. Knights was developed using Silicon Graphics workstations for graphical designs and Sega Saturn emulators running on Hewlett-Packard machines for programming. There were problems during early stages of development because of a lack of games to use as reference. The team had to redesign the Spring Valley level numerous times and build everything from scratch. The team used Sega Jet Graphics Library operating system, said by many developers to make programming for the Saturn dramatically easier, only sparingly, instead creating the game almost entirely with custom libraries. Because the Sonic Team offices did not include soundproof studios, team members recorded sound effects at night. According to Naka, every phrase in the game was a meaning. For example, abayu is Japanese slang for goodbye. The team felt that the global market would be less resistant to a game featuring full 3D CGI cutscenes than 2D anime. Norihiro Nishiyama, the designer of the in-game movies, felt that the 3D cutscenes were a good method to show the different concepts of dreaming and waking up. Naka said that the movies incorporate realism to make it more difficult for the player to disambiguate the boundary between dreams and reality. The development took longer than expected because of the team's inexperience with Saturn hardware and uncertainty about using the full 560 megabyte space on the CD-ROM. The team initially thought that the game would consume around 100 megabytes of data, and at one point considered releasing it on 2 separate discs. Iizuka said that the most difficult part of development was finding a way of handling the contradiction of using 2D side-scroller controls in a 3D game. Naka limited the flying mechanic to invisible 2D tracks because early beta testing revealed that the game was too difficult to play in full 3D. The standard Saturn gamepad was found to be insufficient to control Knights in flight, so the team developed the Saturn analog controller. It took about 6 months to develop, and the team went through many ideas for alternate controllers, including one shaped like a Knight's doll. Iizuka said Knights was inspired by anime and Cirque du Soleil's mystery theatrical performance. The team researched dream sequence and REM sleep, including the works of psychoanalysts Carl Jung, Sigmund Freud, and Friedrich Holtz.
Okay.
Iizuka studied dreams and theories about them, such as Jung's theories of dream archetypes. Naka said that Knights reflected Jung's analytical shadow theory, whereas Clarice and Elliot were inspired by Jung's animus and anime. Release. Knights into Dreams was introduced alongside
it's like 2 minutes in the microwave for all of
Saturn 3D controller, included with some copies of the game. It features an analog stick and analog triggers designed for Knights to make movement easier. Sonic Team noted that successful twinning of the Nintendo 64 controller with Super Mario 64 and realized that the default Saturn controller was better suited to arcade games than Knights into Dreams. During development, the director, Steven Spielberg, visited the Sonic Team studio and became the first person outside the team to play the game. Naka asked him to use an experimental version of the Saturn 3D controller, and it was jokingly referred to as the Spielberg controller throughout development. Because the Knights character was testing very young in focus groups, Saturn used a nighttime scene for the cover art to create a more mature look. Sega of America, fearing the game would appeal to young for a demographic in the West, and considering altering the game to better appeal to the older Saturn demographic in the West, though these plans never materialized. Knights was marketed with a budget of $10 million, which included television and print advertisements in the United States. In the US, it was advertised with the slogan, "Prepare to Fly." Related games. Christmas Nights into Dreams is a short Christmas-themed version of Nights into Dreams released in December of 1996. Bazooka stated that Christmas Nights was created to increase Saturn sales. Development began in July of 1996 and took 3 to 4 months, according to Naka. Designer Takeo Miyoshi recalled working in the peak of summer, holed up at the office listening to Jingle Bells. In Japan, Christmas Nights was included as part of a Christmas Sega Saturn bundle and distributed free to Saturn owners who covered the shipping cost. Elsewhere, it was given away with the purchase of Saturn games such as Daytona USA Championship Circuit Edition in 1996.
I'll be there in a second.
Or issues of Sega Saturn Magazine and Next Generation Magazine. In the UK, Christmas Nights was not included with the Sega Saturn Magazine until December of 1997. Christmas Nights follows Elliot and Clarice during the holiday season following their adventures with Knights. Realizing that the Christmas star is missing from the Twin Seeds Christmas tree, the pair travel to Nightopia to find it, where they reunite with Knights and retrieve the Christmas star from Gilwing's lair.
I was going to say, they were pretty big when you pulled them out of the can. I can't imagine what they swelled to.
Level from Nights into Dreams, playable as both Clarice and Elliot. The Saturn's internal clock
changes
nice
elements
according to the date and time. December activates Christmas Nights mode, replacing item boxes with Christmas presents, greenery with snow and gumdrops, rings with wreaths, and IDA captures with Christmas trees. Nightopians wear elf costumes, and the music is replaced with a rendition of Jingle Bells and an a cappella version of the Nights theme song. During the winter nights period, the Spring Valley weather changes according to the hour. Other changes apply on New Year's Day, Valentine's Day, April Fool's Day, Halloween, Christmas Day, and December 31st, 2099. On April Fool's Day, Riella replaces Knights as the playable character. Knights features several unlockable bonuses such as being able to play the game's soundtrack, observe the status of the A-Life system, experiment with the game's music mixer, time attack one mare, or play as Sega's mascot Sonic the Hedgehog in the minigame Sonic the Hedgehog Into Dreams. Sonic may only play through Spring Valley on foot and must defeat the boss, an inflatable Dr. Robotnik. This is Sonic's first appearance on the Saturn. The music is a remixed version of Final Fever, the final boss battle music from the Japanese and European versions of Sonic CD in 1993. In the HD version of Nights, the Christmas Nights content is playable after the game has been cleared once. Reception. Commercial. In Japan, Nights into Dreams topped the Japanese all-format games chart, despite increased competition from the newly launched Nintendo 64. It was the best-selling Sega Saturn game and the 21st best-selling game of 1996, with 383 copies sold. The PS2 version sold 6,828 units in Japan. In the US, Nights into Dreams was reported to sell out at several different retail outlets. Critical reception. Nights into Dreams received critical acclaim, holding an average score of 89% at GameRankings, based on an aggregate of 9 reviews. Upon release, Computer and Video Games magazine called it one of the most sensational video games ever made. The graphics and flight mechanics were the most praised aspects. Tom Geis of Computer and Video Games said the fight system and freedom were captivating and that Nights into Dreams was the perfect evolution of a Sonic game. Scary Larry of GamePro said flying using the analog joystick is a breeze, and that the gameplay is fun, enjoyable, and impressive. He gave it a 4.5 out of 5 for graphics, and a 5 out of 5 in every other category: sound, control, and fun factor. Entertainment Weekly said its graceful, acrobatic stunts offer a more compelling sensation of soaring than most flight simulators. Edge praised the analog controller and called the levels well-designed and graphically unrivaled. But the reviewer expressed disappointment in the limited level count compared to Super Mario 64, and suggested that Nights seemed to prioritize technical achievements and Saturn selling points over gameplay with as clear a focus as Sonic. Martin Robinson from Eurogamer opined that the fight mechanics were a giddy thrill. Colin Ferris from Game Revolution praised the graphics and speed as breathtaking and awe-inspiring, concluding that it offered the best qualities of the 5th generation machines. GameFan praised the combination of lush graphics, amazing music, and totally unique gameplay. Next Generation criticized the speed, saying that the only disappointing aspects was the way it all rushes by so fast. But the magazine praised the 2-player mode and the innovative method of grading the player once they completed a level. Electronic Gaming Monthly's 4 reviewers were impressed with both the technical aspects and style of the graphics, and said the levels are great fun to explore, though they expressed disappointment that the game was not genuinely 3D and said it did not surpass Super Mario 64. Levi Buchanan from IGN believed that the console was not built to handle Knights due to the game occasionally clipping and warping, though he admitted that the graphics were pretty darn good. A reviewer from Mean Machine Sega praised the vibrant colors and detailed textures and described its animation as being fluid as water. The reviewer also noted occasional pop-in and glitching. Rad Automatic from the British Sega Saturn magazine praised the visuals and color scheme as rich in both texture and detail, while suggesting that Nights into Dreams is one of the most captivating games the Saturn has witnessed yet. Next Generation said the visuals were beyond a doubt the most fluid and satisfying for any game on any system. Upon release, the Japanese Sega Saturn magazine wrote that Nights would have a significant impact on the video game industry, particularly the action game genre. The viewer also said Nights felt better though with the analog pad, in contrast to the conventional controller, and also praised the light and smooth feeling the analog pad portrayed during gameplay. Reviewers also praised the soundtrack and audio effects. Paul Davies from Computer and Video Games said Nights had the best music ever in the same review. Tom Geis said it created a hypnotically magical atmosphere. Ferris said that the music and sound effects were that of a dream world, and asserted that they were fitting for a game like Nights into Dreams. IGN's Buchanan praised the soundtrack and that the sound effects fit in perfectly with the Dream universe. Accolades. Nights into Dreams received the Best Graphics and Best Programming awards at the Japan Game Awards, and Electronic Gaming Monthly's Best of 96 awards. It was a runner-up for Flying Game of the Year behind Pilot Wing 64. Nights was a runner-up for Coolest Mascot behind Mario, and the Saturn Analog Controller, which the magazine called the Nights Controller, won Best Peripheral. The following year, Electronic Gaming Monthly ranked it the 70th best console video game of all time, describing it as unlike anything you've seen before, a 2.5D platform game without the platforms. Legacy and Adaptations. Nights into Dreams has appeared on several best of game of all time lists. In January 2000, poll by Computer and Video Game readers named it the 15th greatest game behind Super Mario 64. IGN ranked it the 94th best game of all time in 2007 and in 2008. Levi Buchanan ranked it 4th in his list of the top 10 Sega Saturn games. Next Generation ranked it the 25th best game in their September 1996 issue, 1 month before they actually reviewed the game, and roughly 2 months before it saw release outside Japan. 1UP ranked it 3rd in its top 10 cult classics list. In 2014, Games Radar listed Nights into Dreams as the best Sega Saturn game of all time, saying it tapped into a new kind of platform gaming for its era. Naka said that the release of Nights was when Sonic Team was truly formed as a brand. Remakes. Sega re-released a remake of Nights into Dreams for the PlayStation 2 exclusively in Japan on February 21, 2008. It includes 16:9 widescreen support, an illustration gallery, and features the ability to play the game in classic Saturn graphics. The game was also featured in a bundle named the Nightopia Dream Pack, which includes a reprint of a picture book that was released in Japan alongside the original Saturn game. A Nights into Dreams handheld electronic game was released by Tiger Electronics in 1997, and a port of it was later released for Tiger's unsuccessful R-Zone console. A high-definition remaster of the PlayStation 2 version was released for the PlayStation Network and Xbox Live Arcade in October of 2012. A Windows version was released via Steam in December of 2012, with online score leaderboards and the option to play with enhanced graphics or with the original Saturn graphics. The HD version also includes Christmas Nights, but the 2-player mode and Sonic the Hedgehog level were removed. All information in the video today was provided by Wikipedia.